Well, President Obama has called a summit of CEOs for Wednesday, urging them to spend their money on jobs. Joining us now is Brian Gardner. He heads Washington research for Keefe Bruyette Woods and has worked for members of Congress for many years. Brian, nice to see you back on the program. Give me your take. Give me your take on this Wednesday summit. What might we expect?
Well, I mean, I think we got a glimpse of it at the end of last week when the White House started floating proposals, or at least the idea of a proposal on tax reform. So I think there's going to be a lot of talk of tax reform. The fiscal future will be talked about, as well as regulatory reform and easing up on the regulatory initiative of the past year. We're not going to get anything big out of the summit. It'll be a little bit of feel good, but I think it'll be a chance for the administration and CEOs to go back and forth on what the agenda should be for next year. And I think that is tax reform. I think that is moving up the ladder on the agenda.
But Brian,
and also how to go easy. Yes.
But Brian,
and easier to go on.
Don't you think the president is going to want to see some of these CEOs announce some new hires afterwards?
He probably will, but I don't think you're going to get a ton of that from the get-go. Look, we're coming out of a financial crisis that traditionally these types of financial system crises, banking crises, the economic recovery afterwards is pretty sluggish. And we continue to see evidence that loan demand remains sluggish.
Right.
And until that confidence returns, I just don't see you're going to see big announcements coming out of this conference.
And I'm sure the president's going to want to get this tax deal wrapped up somehow before he meets the CEOs. How do you think that's going so far?
I think we're in for a week of drama. As Peter Cook alluded to earlier, we're going to have a vote this afternoon in the Senate. I suspect that will pass, and then it's going to go to the House. And the House will ultimately pass it, but there could be changes to the bill. The estate tax is something that House Democrats are looking at closely. Any changes to the Senate-passed bill, it has to go back to the Senate. So I think this is going to wrap up probably after the Jobs Summit is over, probably at the end of the week, maybe into the weekend. We have a couple of more chapters to go through on this story.
Well, the estate tax, you bring that up. Tell me how you think there's going to be a compromise there.
Well, Republicans would argue that they've already compromised. They wanted no estate tax whatsoever. The estate tax is zero right now, goes up to 55% next year with a $1 million exemption. The compromise is for a 35% tax and a $5 million exemption. They can change around and tinker a little bit with those numbers on the level of the exemption, the level of the rate, something to buy off a couple of House Democrats if they're short of votes. But I don't see fundamental changes. I really think they're going to nibble around the edges. But again, any kind of change to the Senate-passed bill has got to go back to the Senate, kind of basic civics, and that pushes it to the end of the week, maybe even into the weekend. Okay,
well, hopefully not into next year. Brian, thank you. Brian Gardner of Keefe Bruyette.